Steve Colon with Colon of Villaplana. Thanks for joining me. I want to talk about REOs, or foreclosures. That's another word for it. A lot of people are interested in buying foreclosures, buying REOs, buying from auctions. Let me just give you a heads up on some of the things that I have to explain to my clients about buying foreclosure property. One, typically, what does everyone know? Usually you're typically getting it for under market value, although there is a trend now where foreclosing banks are actually fixing up the property themselves and selling it at market value. And then currently, at the time this is being filmed, we're in a seller's market, so a lot of the foreclosures are actually being sold for market price or just under. The biggest thing with foreclosures are we're dealing with a national bank typically. You're signing contracts because in other states you sign contracts prior to signing with an attorney. So you're typically signing the contracts with your agent. Then I'm waiting for a New York contract. Now, the biggest problem that I have with foreclosures is the fact that we're not allowed, for the most part, about 99%. There's actually one attorney that I deal with that does foreclosures that allows us to do a rider protect a buyer. And if you're interested in what a rider is, just go to my website and look at what's a buyer's rider. But we have to take the contract as is. And what does that mean? That means that, one, any change that we need, whether it's adding on your husband or your fiance or your wife or whatever the case is, or your brother, that has to be sent to us. There is a time limit that they give us before they cancel your offer. So you have to sign within a short amount of time, and they have to receive your down payment within that amount of time. In addition to not being able to change anything, a lot of times the contracts do not make sense. They're contradictory in and of itself. You'll get a contract that says you have to get a mortgage commitment by October 15th, meanwhile you're signing November 1st. That happens. Yes, we're going to get an addendum after the fact, but there's a lot of things you have to sign that don't make sense. The closing date typically doesn't make sense. Now, in my experience, foreclosure contracts, they will give you extensions. Every one is like a 1 week or a 2 week what's called time of the essence extension, and usually the closing date is time of the essence. What does that mean? Well, technically it means if you don't close by that day, you're in default. So it's very scary to sign a contract that pretty much says you're in default half the time by signing the contract. Like I said, certain dates don't make sense, or that it's impossible to close by that time. Unfortunately, you have no choice if you want that property. They will not let us change it until after the fact. They'll usually give extensions, and some contracts or some foreclosure sellers will add a per day penalty if we don't close by a certain amount of time. So just, go over the contract with your attorney, understand the fact that certain things can't be changed, and this is kind of the risk that you go into going to these contracts. Some other unique things with foreclosures, yes, they will want to pay for your title sometimes, your title expenses, if you use their title company. I don't recommend going with a foreclosure bank's title company because it's a national company. They also don't do a lot of searches that we're going to do. Matter of fact, they almost never do municipal searches. So you're not going to know if you have a CO for the property. A lot of times, if there is a private road which is not maintained, a bunch of other things. Are there violations on the property? Without running the municipal report, you won't know if there's violations, and now you're inheriting that. So just make sure you go over the whole contract, understand that there's things that don't make sense, and this is time and time again, nothing we can do about. Just go with them to open head and just, unfortunately, you have to trust the process and on what we've experienced before. But it is scary, again, because you're signing something that is contradictory. Some other things you need to know with foreclosure. Transfer taxes. Typically, although sometimes it can be negotiated, it's very rare, the buyer is paying the real estate transfer taxes. What does that mean? Well, for New York State, transfer taxes are $4 for every $1,000. If you're buying in Yonkers, it's 1.5% on top of that. New York City, it could be 1%, it could be 1.425%, based if it's over $500,000 the purchase price or not. So certain localities have their own unique transfer tax, so make sure that you ask your attorney about that. You're gonna have that added on to your closing costs, and you don't wanna not be prepared for that. What is fortunate sometimes with foreclosures, when it comes to closings, a lot of times the seller does not calculate the tax adjustment. So sometimes you actually make up some of those monies that you spent because it's like if you're closing upstate and taxes are, pretty large, sometimes they don't adjust for that and you end up winning because the bank paid those taxes. Any other questions, just feel free to, contact me. I hope that I can be your guide in the foreclosure process. Thank you. Hope you're enjoying the videos that you've watched today. They're not meant to be a substitution for speaking with your legal professional, but just an educational tool. Thank you.